Every country on Earth is in debt. The United States now owes over $38 trillion, the highest figure in its history. The European Union carries around 14 trillion, while Japan is close to 9 trillion. Even oil-rich nations like Saudi Arabia, or export powerhouses such as Germany and China, all owe enormous sums. This leads to an unavoidable paradox. If everybody owes money, who exactly is owed? This is The Financial Historian, where money, power, and history collide, and nothing is ever as simple as it appears. Debt is not merely a burden, it is the architecture of the modern world. Every war, every crisis, every boom, and every collapse rests on this invisible scaffolding of IOUs. And if you follow the chain of creditors far enough, you encounter a deeply unsettling conclusion. The world does not owe money to any single entity. In many ways, it owes it to itself. Yet that does not mean the benefits are shared equally. To understand how we arrived at this point, a planet submerged under more than $315 trillion in total debt, nearly 3 times the size of the global economy, we must return to the beginning. Long before credit cards or digital transfers, the concept of national debt was born not on Wall Street but on the battlefield. In 1694, England was at war with France and rapidly running out of gold. Desperate for funds, the crown turned to merchants. In exchange for a permanent stream of interest payments backed by future taxes, these merchants financed the state. To administer this unprecedented arrangement, the Bank of England was created. The implications were revolutionary. The state could now spend money it did not yet possess. In return, lenders received something extraordinarily powerful: a government promise, tradable, purchasable, and saleable. This marked the birth of the government bond, the seed from which the modern financial system would grow. France soon adopted the model, the Netherlands refined it. The newly independent United States embraced it to fund its revolution and later its westward expansion. Over time, national debt ceased to be a symbol of failure. It became a measure of credibility. The ability to borrow became synonymous with the ability to rule. Empires once conquered territory to extract gold. Now they issued bonds to extract interest. The battlefield shifted from land to ledgers. Power migrated from armies to balance sheets. 3 centuries later, debt has become the world's dominant export. The United States owes $38 trillion, Japan owes over $9 trillion, and global borrowing increases by the equivalent of $1 trillion every 100 days. Every country owes, every bank lends, every citizen, through taxes, savings, and pensions, is simultaneously a debtor and a creditor. But who, in practical terms, holds the other end of the rope? To answer that question, consider the United States, because its debt is not merely national, it is global. Of its total obligations, roughly half are publicly held, meaning they are owed to investors rather than to internal government accounts. Approximately 2/3 of those investors are American institutions, banks, pension funds, mutual funds, insurance companies, and the Federal Reserve itself. The remaining third, around $9 trillion, is held abroad. Japan is the largest foreign holder at roughly $1 trillion, followed by China with about $800 billion, then the United Kingdom, Luxembourg, and Belgium. When people claim the United States is in debt to China, they're technically correct, but only for about 2% of the total. In reality, most American debt is owed to Americans. The Treasury issues bonds. Banks and funds purchase them. The Federal Reserve frequently buys them back, creating new dollars in the process. Taxes paid by citizens fund the interest, which then flows back into retirement accounts and investment portfolios. It is a circular mirror. The debt is real, but the creditor is largely a reflection of the same system. This circularity is not unique to the United States. It is global. Japan lends to the US through treasury bonds. The US lends to Europe through institutions like the IMF. Europe lends to developing nations through the World Bank. Those developing nations in turn lend back to advanced economies by holding foreign exchange reserves in Western bonds. The entire planet is engaged in a game of financial hot potato, except the potato is made of promises. Every country holds another country's IOU. Every promise is backed by yet another promise. It resembles a poker table where every player has borrowed chips from the next, and the only rule keeping the game alive is that no one stands up. Above this web sits a fourth layer, the most powerful of all, the markets themselves. Behind every government bond exists a vast network of hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and central banks managing tens of trillions of dollars in assets. These institutions are the true arbiters of credit. They determine which nations can borrow cheaply and which must pay a premium simply to survive. When confidence disappears, currencies collapse, governments fall, and entire economies can be restructured overnight. Democracy may decide who governs, but markets decide who survives. At the center of this system stands the ultimate market maker, the central bank. Central banks do not merely manage debt, they manufacture it. Every time the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank purchases government bonds, new money is created. A liability on one balance sheet becomes an asset on another. Every dollar in circulation represents debt somewhere else. There is no such thing as debt-free money. Every coin, every bill, every digital dollar carries an invisible IOU. For decades, this system has sustained itself through confidence. As long as investors believe governments will continue paying interest, even if the principal is never repaid, the machine keeps turning. But when confidence falters, history shows what follows. In Greece in 2010, government debt became unpayable. Bondholders panicked. Yields surged. The European Central Bank and the IMF intervened, but the rescue came with severe austerity, tax increases, spending cuts, and mass unemployment. For an entire generation, bailout became synonymous with sacrifice. In Argentina, repeated defaults transformed debt into a national curse. In Sri Lanka, fuel shortages and political collapse followed when foreign currency reserves were exhausted. When the system breaks, creditors suddenly become visible, the IMF, rating agencies and anonymous bondholders capable of exerting enormous pressure on entire nations. Yet even after collapse, the same logic reasserts itself. Old debts are restructured, new loans replace them. The machine resets, often with different labels, but the same balance sheets. This is because in the 21st century, debt is not designed to be repaid, it is designed to be rolled over. Governments do not plan to eliminate their debt, neither now nor in the future. This is not conspiracy, it is policy. Individuals repay principal, governments refinance it. New bonds are issued to retire old ones. Interest becomes the true product, the rent charged for stability. The global economy now depends on that rent, much like a shark depends on constant motion to survive. The system runs on confidence, not repayment. The United States will never fully clear its $38 trillion debt. Japan has rolled over its obligations for decades, now exceeding 250% of GDP, yet its bond yields remain near zero. Investors are not waiting to be repaid. They are waiting to renew the arrangement. Government debt is treated as the safest collateral on earth. U.S. Treasury bonds are not viewed as liabilities, but as foundational assets. Pension funds hold them. Banks pledge them. Central banks treat them as money. The system depends on governments never paying off their debt. If they did, the world would lose its most trusted financial instrument. If Washington somehow eliminated its debt entirely, global liquidity would collapse, deflation would surge, and the system would unravel. Therefore, governments do the opposite. They issue more debt, not chaotically, but rhythmically. Debt becomes the heartbeat of modern capitalism, pulsing through pensions, mortgages, and markets worldwide. This is why political promises to eliminate the national debt are largely illusory. The goal is not zero debt, but debt that remains sustainable, serviceable, and desirable. Once belief fades, numbers cease to matter. Interest rates spike, confidence collapses, and an economy built on rolling promises grinds to a halt. That is the true secret of sovereign debt. The plan was never to pay it back. The plan was to ensure the world continues to believe it will be paid back. However, trust is not evenly distributed. When we say we owe it to ourselves, this is only partially true. Interest payments do not circulate equally. They flow upward, from workers and taxpayers to institutions and investors. Debt is not merely a transfer between nations, it is a transfer between social classes. This is why rising global debt and rising inequality move together. The system rewards those who own debt and penalizes those who service it. Creditors are not villains, and debtors are not victims. They are two sides of the same engine. The real danger emerges when that engine runs out of fuel, when new borrowing can no longer sustain old promises. At that point, the question, who is the creditor, stops being theoretical and becomes deeply personal. At the top of this global pyramid, there's no single actor to blame. Not China, not Wall Street, not the IMF. It is all of them and all of us. The modern financial system has transformed debt itself into money. Governments issue it, banks multiply it, investors trade it. Citizens depend on it. The boundary between debtor and creditor has all but vanished. Debt once meant bondage. Today, it means balance. But if that balance ever breaks, if confidence disappears, the illusion ends and we are forced to confront what debt truly is, a promise that cannot last forever. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.